Up, it is week 134, and this is kind of a special episode. I have like 14 2019 watches, all from 2019 or were widely released in 2019, and of course I have a Hammer Time. Besides that, they're all fairly new movies within the last year, or wide release within the last year. The first one I want to talk about, it's not really a review per se, because I was involved with this movie. And so, it's kind of like, I just want to talk about it a little bit. People to Kill, give it some promotion, I guess. This is Adam Clevenger's first movie. Adam Clevenger is an actor, now director. He had done he popped up in a couple movies. Primordial was the one that I knew him from most. And he's a really nice guy. I've worked with him a couple times. And I ended up going down to Dayton and being in his directorial debut. Did like one day. But this movie is kind of a prequel to Primordial, and he stars as the character from that movie, and it's kind of his backstory about his life. And what I'll say about this is that, it isn't an independent movie. It is somebody's first attempt at making a film. So some like budget constraints are there, sound and some of the, coverage and things like that. But to say that it's very ambitious. He went and pulled a lot of favors and did a lot of work. I remember being on set, and he was actually like making like the sound, like a bedroom within his garage and stuff like that. He really went out of his way and did a lot of hard work, and you can tell there's ambition on the screen. I think there are some pretty good performances in here. There's a lot of familiar faces from indie actors in Dayton, like Aaron R. Ryan and Noah Shane's in here, Jeff Berkman. Joni Durian is in here. So there's tons of people you'll recognize in this movie from that kind of scene. I think the acting for the most part is pretty solid. I thought Adam Clevenger did a good job as well, and I can't imagine acting in your own movie in directorial debut is an easy thing. But like I said, it's very ambitious. It's more of like a crime kind of drama. There's some funny moments, but it is like a 2-hour and 14-minute runtime. I don't know if there's going to be another version available or not, but I'm going to roll the trailer for you guys, and there'll be a link below if you're interested in checking it out. Support if you like what you see, because he put a lot of hard work and effort into this.
Vince, don't forget, Jitty barred for your birthday today. Well, just tell him.
Well, for starters, he refers to every gay pride parade as walking for the cure.
The tale of Sodom and Gomorrah.
It's just sad that I get more pussy at my age than all 3 of my sons put together. I have been to 3 crime scenes already this week. They're all telling me the same thing. He enjoys this. He enjoys hurting people.
Your dad worked on the lullaby case? What happened?
He came home and found my mom dead in the bathtub. Dad wasn't the same after that.
Damn it, Sean!
The hell with you. All of you.
There's a line, brother.
We all have a dark side,
Whoa!
Gotcha.
Fuck you. No.
If it's any consolation, you kill people really fucking good.
Don't be late.
Okay, the next one was a theater experience. I went with one of my friends, and I saw Doctor Sleep. Yes, the new Mike Flanagan movie. And, these are probably going to be a little bit more scarce reviews, considering the fact that there's so much packed into 1 week that your memory starts to fade a little bit. Excuse King. But Doctor Sleep, okay, this is a sequel to The Shining, and it's kind of strange. Well, Stephen King never infamously liked the original Shining by Stanley Kubrick, so he wrote a sequel to the novel, but he really couldn't follow that if we were going to make a film. So Mike Flanagan, being a fan of the original novel, which ends in a completely different way from the movie, and being a fan of the movie, kind of took the book sequel, Doctor Sleep, that Stephen King wrote, and made his own sequel that incorporates stuff from the book Doctor Sleep and from the original Shining and the book Shining. So it's kind of like a compromise in a way to kind of appease both parties in making a sequel. Okay, Doctor Sleep stars Ian McGregor, who's a pretty solid actor, and he plays Danny Torrance all grown up. And Danny Torrance, if you guys are not familiar with The Shining, I really don't know what to tell you. Danny Torrance had this thing called The Shine, which was some sort of weird kind of ESP, telekinetic, telepathy. They all kind of work in a different way. And he was in the Overlook Hotel, and tragedy happened. But he's dealing with that tragedy his whole life. He's become an alcoholic. He's become some sort of kind of drifter. And one day he drifts into this kind of small town, and he meets Cliff Curtis, becomes his friend. He vouches for him. And years go down the line, and he becomes kind of friends with him and starts a relationship at working, Alcohol Anonymous. He works in a hospital, helping people who, are struggling with their death and everything like that, and comforts them. That's how he gets the name Dr. Sleep. And there's some sort of kind of psychics, or I'll say people with the shine, that are so powerful that other people with the shine can sense it. And there's this young girl who's one of the most powerful, and they kind of communicate through a chalkboard. I'm not going to spoil too much here, but there's also a group of psychic vampires that want to live forever, so they drain the life force of the people with the shine. And there's a group of them, they're like kind of traveling. I guess the term, I guess it's not a political correct term anymore, like gypsies, traveling kind of like that kind of style, or nomadic kind of people. So they travel around and they look for people with the shine, and they drain them so they can live forever. This is led by, I can't think of it, Rose the Hat, I think is her name, and she's a tremendous villain. One of the best villains I've seen this year, actually. Great performance, and she has her kind of lackeys and everything, and they all have these little different personalities. They all look kind of like gothic and weird, and one is played by Lurch, so that's a nice little touch there. So basically what happens is the psychic vampires, start to have their eyes on this girl, and it's up to Danny Torrance to kind of face off against them. And then I'll leave it at that. This movie is actually, it's really well acted. The little girl's tremendous. The bad guys are really good. The lead baddie's great. Ian McGregor is really good. It's shot really well. It incorporates stuff from The Shining towards the end of the movie that I think people really enjoy seeing. There's this one kind of deal where a lot of these people are just driving cross country all the time, and nobody really cares. It's like, I'm driving 20 hours, and I don't have any sort of, effect on me. Like, Danny Torrance will drive 20 hours, and he'll get out, and he'll be fine. But and there's a lot of nice setups, and to be honest, subject matter like this, the psychic vampires and the ESP and the driving cross country and communicating over the entire United States through your mind, could be very laughable if it wasn't handled in a proper way. And for some reason, they make this movie grounded, and it works. And I at times, if this was a lesser director or lesser filmmaker or maybe lesser source material, you would laugh out loud and be like, this is so stupid. I can't watch this. But they handle it really well. There's a nice payoff, and there's some cool special effects. And there's one scene in here, a couple, that I was like, oh, this opens up, and it does not pull punches. Right away this movie means business. And there's some people that get killed that you don't expect to get killed in kind of harsh ways, and you're thinking, oh man, this movie's for keeps, and it's kind of disturbing. So I got to give it props for that. I actually really liked it. It is a bit long, but it kind of becomes tedious when they're just driving cross country the whole time, because this is a movie, like The Stand, where it's crossed the entire United States. I would recommend checking this out. It does have a nice, big kind of ending that has to go there, even if it's far-fetched getting there. But there's some nice little touches in here, how people deal with the psychics and everything like that. There's different kinds of psychics, which I really like, so it kind of puts you into that Scanners world where everybody has their specialties, or like a Marvel world, but grounded in this kind of horror world. I always felt like Stephen King's work felt like Marvel done like horror movie style. But yeah, I also got to say that sometimes they try to recreate things from The Shining, and that can be jarring to a certain extent when you see people filling shoes that are just that so well, and you're just like, oh, I don't know how I feel feel about that. But all in all, I would recommend it. It was good stuff, and it's probably, be in people's top 10 of the year for sure.
Just talk to the kid.
You're magic. Like me.
I need you to listen to me. The world's a hungry place. A dark place.
Hi there.
I only met 2 or 3 people like us. They died. When I was a kid, I bumped into these things. I don't know about magic. I always called it the Shining.
Okay, this next one here is Knife Plus Heart, and this was widely released this year. I know a lot of people probably caught it last year. This thing right here is annoying, but this is from Altered Innocence, and I had my eye on this movie. This is something straight up my alley. I believe this is this a German film or a French film? It's got to be French. I can't believe I'm doing this. I believe French, yes. Only the French would make this kind of movie, and I mean that as a compliment because of what it is. But what we have here is a film that takes place in the 70s, so it's a timepiece, and it follows the gay porn industry. So you're like, wow, that's kind of really, really gutsy to do something like that. We have this female director who's kind of does like strange kind of art gay films, and her girlfriend, her former girlfriend, is the editor, and they have kind of this really like passionate but relationship that's over, and the director's suffering through it. She doesn't want it to be over, and she's directing these gay porns, and people start to get killed from her movies. This movie is very giallo. It's a modern day giallo, so the set pieces when murders happen, they kind of take almost a supernatural style over substance approach. It will start pouring, and it wasn't raining before, and somebody's stranded out there. And we also have this kind of supernatural element with this kind of blind bird that leads into the plot. So it's really wonderful how it is like a giallo, where it has enough groundedness and enough supernatural aspects to it, and the story unfolds, and it is a mystery, and it doesn't do what I thought it was going to do, and I was so thankful that it went in a different direction. At the core of this movie is basically 2 kind of broken love stories that I really loved, and very tragic love stories at the same time, and we have this kind of correlation relation between these two love stories within the characters. The murders are fairly graphic, if I remember correctly. I think that they were at least very, very stylized, and I remember enjoying them to a certain extent when it comes to giallos. And I like the idea of somebody making a gay porn film and having the people be picked off, and the director starts to take aspects from what's happening in the murders and incorporate them into her film. It's a wonderful experience. It's very touching, and you wouldn't think this would be the kind of movie that actually like pulls on your heartstrings at the end of the movie, but this was the most touching experience I've had this year for movies, and I couldn't believe it. I love the colors. I love everything about it. I love the setup. And although it is a movie about, porn, it's not as graphic as one would think. There's not full penetration or anything like that. In fact, I think they pretty much, managed to not show any, nobody drops dong in it, if I remember correctly. I don't remember seeing any of that. But like I said, there's some really touching moments, and I love the performances from everybody in here. And it does remind me of Cruising to a certain extent, when people picking up people in the gay kind of bar, or cruising and then killing them and whatever. So it has these kind of like little parts from other movies, like of course giallos and Cruising and things like that. And rarely do movies that are made about making movies, unless you're like a big movie, are good. Like I usually don't care for them. Like this is a little different though. This is about making movies. I guess I enjoy that. I don't enjoy, we're out to make a horror movie, and guess what? Now our movie is a horror movie for real. That kind of gets old. This one's not that. This one is a really has an emotional core to it, which I didn't expect. It has great stylized murders. It has very well acted, very dramatic performances, and it's funny too when they're actually making the porn. Some of the things in there are very hilarious. So it's got everything. One of my favorites of the year for sure. Knife Plus Heart, highly recommended.
J'ai besoin de toi. Dis-moi que tu m'aimes. Arrête de jouer. C'est fini pour de bon. Je voudrais sentir ta peau une dernière fois, pour plus avoir peur quand je serai seule dans la nuit. Je pensais pas que c'était possible d'aimer autant, aussi longtemps. Tu dois m'aimer. Tiens à moi, Loïs. À moi, à moi, à moi.
C'est un de ses amis qui a découvert le corps.
Carl venait de tourner dans un de mes films.
Quel genre de film exactement?
Oh, arrêtez votre charme. Faites pas le coup des types qui sont pas renseignés.
Dans 2 minutes, je veux tous à poil et regarde à vous, plus raide que Giscard. On se soulage avec la main, on est à l'aise entre copains.
Oh, coupé. Sur le plateau, il était du genre insatiable, les yeux illuminés, à la merci de ses partenaires comme possédés. Vous savez, quand on s'oublie avec l'autre, qu'on sait plus où on est, ça vous est jamais arrivé. Une forme d'amour en quelque sorte, puissant, vorace, sans limite.
C'était le dernier plan du tueur homo. Bravo.
Okay, this next one here is by the director of Eyes of My Mother, which came out a couple years ago and I thought was pretty fantastic. This is piercing, and I wanted to check this one out. Finally did. And okay, this plot of this movie is kind of this really strange man who they just had a newborn, him and his wife, and for some reason he believes that he has to go out and kill someone to help prevent something or a sacrifice. I'm not sure. Him and his wife are definitely off kilter, or maybe it's just him and he's hallucinating a lot of this kind of stuff. I don't necessarily know, but I believe it's the couple that's very off. So he decides to, he pre-plans everything to tedium, and then he decides to pick up this prostitute and he plans on murdering her. What he doesn't know is this prostitute is also very strange and also damaged, so you kind of have this cat and mouse game of people that don't necessarily know each other's motives, and they're both psychologically damaged, and they have some sort of innocent quality to them at the same time of their, their sickness. I don't really know how to go about it. But what's cool about this movie is they use a lot of miniatures outside. They'll do a lot of, doing the landscape or establishing shots, or just go outside and show all the buildings and stuff like that. And they're like high rises, but they're all miniatures. And that's kind of stylized and cool. I enjoyed that. And also they use music from like Goblin, or they use this theme music from Tentacles, which is a very memorable music, very, very memorable score. So they do a lot of that. But for the first time ever, I felt like they were saying, hey, you like these movies. I like these movies. Please like my movie. And I don't feel like this music matched. I felt like it was out of place. And I know I never say that. I like the shout outs. I appreciate using that stuff. But this time, for the first time, it felt out of place using that kind of music. I felt like it was kind of forced, that it wanted to, call forth those, Italian influences, but it really wasn't like an Italian influenced movie. Or maybe it was kind of trying to mix these genres or something. Didn't work for me. There is some surreal stuff in here, hallucinatory stuff, and you kind of get into his psychological state, why he might be somewhat like this. He's really weird. And the movie is constantly, you're waiting for something to happen. It's tense build-up, and you're not necessarily a tense payoff or anything like that. Very tense, but very tedious at the same time. That's my favorite word this week, is tedious. I've been using it the whole time, I feel like. But it's kind of lackluster for me. It's not horrible. It's good, but it's a disappointment, especially after watching like something like Eyes of My Mother, which I thought was pretty fantastic and very disturbing and just well made and sad and tragic. This one, it doesn't have that same emotional kind of I don't have any empathy. I just don't necessarily care after a while with these characters. And I know a lot of people are saying, just get on with it within the movie. So I'll get on with this review and end it. Not huge on this one. I thought it was good, just not great. And I thought it would be great, so.
I seem to have left something in my room. Have a good night, sir.
I see this playing out in one of three ways. You want to know?
Oh, yeah, of course. That's why I called you. The victim has to be a prostitute.
Your guest is on the way up.
Thank you. The first step is to get her tied up and gagged. She'll probably try to run and scream.
Is everything all right, sir?
Everything's fine.
You could still kill him.
What?
The first one, she knows what's going on.
I want a way to remember this.
She's being fake. The second one is, but she's like crazy and wants to die. So take her home and stop her, right?
Yeah. What's the third?
Third one is, she wants to buy some time.
What's the nastiest thing you've ever done?
Oh, God. I don't like that one.
I know, that's the worst.
Just wanted to make you happy.
There's something wrong with you.
Want me to do this to you?
Don't you want to do it to me?
Okay, this next one is by Jeff Wedding, who did A Measure of Sin, and this is Tennessee Gothic. I really like that cover art, and I am so happy this movie was shot on 16mm. I believe Knife and Heart was shot on 16 too, so that also makes it really beautiful to me. But Tennessee Gothic, the title alone, you kind of get that kind of southern gothic kind of feel, and that's exactly what they're going for here. This is shot by Eric Stanzi, who is a very prolific kind of transgressive indie director, and he's a very good cinematographer. He shot We Are What We Are, the remake, and that movie I wasn't a huge fan of, but I thought it looked amazing, and this one's shot really well too, and it's a movie made on a budget. Okay, Tennessee Gothic. We follow the story of kind of right in the beginning of this movie. It opens up pretty intense. It's a night for night shot too, so it looks great. There's a attack and attempted rape, or maybe a rape I believe it is, in this kind of crick. And Jackie Kelly, who plays the lead in this movie, she's in Memory of, which is a great movie that came out last year that I don't think many people seen. She attacks them and defends herself and kills the two and leaves them in the creek. And I don't want to spoil too much. That's right in the beginning of the movie. And she kind of wanders to the side of the road, passes out. This good old kind of guy that everybody calls Paul picks her up, takes her home, and her son get in a relationship with her. And I'll get into detail about that a little later. But what I liked about this movie is normally I don't like this kind of stuff, but it's definitely kind of a comedy. So the soundtrack and the cues and the themes in the movie play on the comedy. And I turned the subtitles on, and right away I knew that was their kind of intent. Because after something happens and the title comes down and there's violence, it plays this death metal music. And I was like, oh, that's kind of strange, because we have these mixtures of metal and like the southern kind of folklore thing, which is a really mixture, but it's definitely playing on the audience expectations and trying to be kind of funny at the same time, because afterwards the subtitles gave me the devil horns and I just started laughing. So that was very clever and very funny. And all the characters in this movie seem to have their own theme music, like Jackie Kelly, and when she's with the younger farmer, there's kind of like a sweet love theme. And there's a character called Ronnie who is trying to find Jackie Kelly because she is something that she does not appear to be, if you know what I mean. So he's after her because somebody he loved has died because of her. So he's after her, and his music is sludge metal, and it plays every time he comes on screen, and it actually becomes almost like a funny gimmick, like where he's constantly after them. And I want to remember, is that The Great Outdoors that uses that music, dun 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 dun, with Dan Aykroyd when he's coming up, and it reminds me of that because he's getting closer and he's getting closer. But I think the performances are really strong in here. Ronnie's played by Jason Chris, who is a Kreese, is it, I believe? He's in a bunch of Eric Stanze movies. So yeah, like it has that group too. Jackie Kelly's been in a couple of his movies too. So yeah, the three leads, Jackie Kelly and Paul and the son, are all really good. So what happens is, of course, she's supposed to be underage, and she starts to kind of seduce them, but and a local reverend too starts to get seduced. So they're all kind of going after her and falling kind of for her, and they get lazier and they get sicker. And this is based off a writer, Incubus and American Gothic, and they said a poem, The Woman in the Leads, yeah. So you know where it's going, and I don't want to come out and say it, but you know exactly what is going on. There was a movie that the book Incubus was actually made into a movie in the 80s with John Cassavetes too, so you kind of know where this is going to a certain extent. But it plays a lot for laughs, especially when the family's arguing with each other. There's lots of good sex scenes in here, and it's played like in a romp in a lot of ways. But there's some gory moments, some violent moments, some bloody moments in here. I like the music choices, and usually I don't even the metal stuff that pops in, because it like I said, it's like themes and things like that. It just works in this one. I like how it looks. I like the location. I like these kind of Southern Gothic stories, and we've had another really good kind of Southern Gothic horror movie this year called Purgatory Road. So I like seeing these same themes pop up every year occasionally, and that's kind of an underrated genre. We had a lot like Scalpel or stuff back in the day, and I always kind of like those Southern Gothic movies, or what is it? Don't Go in the Attic. So I like them because they have a certain amount of sleaze, but they also Gothic always is equivalent to high class. So when you go like Southern and you go rural and do Gothic, it's just a unique kind of combination. So I've always liked it. Like I said, very well acted, very well shot. I like the score. I like the script. I just really enjoy this one, and the ending's pretty cool as well. And I do enjoy narration, and we do have some narration as well in the beginning and end. It kind of ties it together. Recommend this one. Cool stuff. And if you ever see his other movie, A Measure of Sin, man, that movie has a lot of guts and packs a punch. They added a movie, I'll never forget it. I'm just thinking, it's so good because of the ending. But this one is also very good, and I really liked it. So Tennessee Gothic, and the fastest shipping I've ever gotten an item. I think I got it in 2 days or something like that. So yeah.
Is she dead? No, she's hurt real bad. Go on, let's get her inside. You want to tell us what happened?
I was attacked.
You're not from around here, are you? Well, I reckon you ought to stay here.
Really?
Extremely dangerous. The guy don't weigh no more than 100 pounds.
It ain't safe, Paul. I'm telling you, it's those cult people.
Been taking something belonging to me.
Been doing it for years, my fucking Jess. Can I help you? Where is she? Sure, I know what you mean.
Crystal Lake still makes a good spot in the summer.
Just don't make no sense. The hell it don't. You've been so busy plowing the hired gal, you ain't kept the chicken fed. They must have cannabisized themselves.
Mrs. Sims gave me a mission before she left. Seems there's been some peculiar talk going around town. Seems you've got yourself a little foreign gal out here on the farm.
Well, there's a gal out here that's true. Ain't much foreign about her, as far as I can tell, unless you reckon Pennsylvania's foreign.
Your husband's a great man. He's shown me the wondrous ways of the Lord. Isn't that right, Reverend?
Praise the Lord, the ways of the Lord are wondrous.
I'm telling you, just gets my JB Diver just straighter than a skunk's tail.
I know just what you mean, boy. The gal's got a baby on the way.
No!
So you're gonna have to marry her.
No, I can't be married now.
No,
I'm not gonna like that at all.
not to yourself, moron. One of us.
Oh! Well, that's different.
Sylvia, wicked great Sylvia.
Excuse me?
Yeah, it'll be fun.
They lose their heads. They lose their heads. Yeah, kids will lose their heads.
You getting sick, boy?
Let's go.
They lose their heads. Yeah, kids will lose their heads.
Please, time's up.
Crystal Lake still makes a good spot.
Oh God, Sylvie, that's not you. It's not you.
Okay, this next one here is by Ricky Bates Jr., who did Suburban Gothic, Excision, and Trash Fire, and this is Tone Deaf. Yeah, it stars Robert Patrick, who I absolutely love Robert Patrick. You guys know T-1000, Copland, very good character actor, always turns in a great performance. So, Tone Deaf. Ricky Bates Jr. is one of the strangest directors, and hearing him in interviews, he's just like, he's so weird but quirky and likable to me. He makes me laugh. And his type of humor always gets me to laugh because it's gross but dark. So Tone Deaf, he wanted to make this movie, hearing like interviews and things, because he wanted to make kind of like this big difference between millennials and boomers and everything like that. And a lot of people are like, oh, get it out of my movies. But I like it, especially when it's funny and it's done well, and this one's done well. To me, at least. I know I've seen a lot of people dislike this movie, and I was just like, no, I don't think you guys are getting this. And I really enjoyed it. So Robert Patrick is kind of a widower. He lives by himself. He's kind of like strange and, you know, just a typical kind of stereotypical movie boomer or whatever, but he wants to do one thing before he dies: kill somebody. So he's obviously got some psychological problems going on. He kind of despises millennials, so he has this kind of old house that him and his wife used to live in. He puts it up for rent, and he's hoping that a millennial will want to go there so he can kill her. The millennial in this movie is, she's really funny too. The funny thing about this is Robert Patrick and the boomer and the millennial are both kind of stereotypical in some ways. They're both kind of annoying in a lot of ways, but at times I like them both, even though they do despicable things. Or not necessarily the millennial, she's not a horrible person, but she can do some annoying things and not notice that she's just doing these things. But it's funny, I ended up enjoying both the characters quite a bit. So she ends up losing her job, losing her boyfriend, and her boyfriend's actually played by a guy who was in Puppet Master, The Littlest Reich, a very good, the Jewish guy in that movie. He's very good in that movie. He's pretty good in this too. Small role though. So essentially what happens is she ends up going here, and Robert Patrick starts to mess with her, and through a set of circumstances, someone figures out what he's doing, and he has to kill a different person. And after he makes that first kill, he kind of goes down this skid, and you learn through like dream sequences. I know a lot of people don't like dream sequences, but it's a way to get into psychology, that he's not right, that he sees things weird and different. And I think some of that plays into his own kid, without spoiling too much, because you get a little hint of that at the very ending. But, you know, so he starts to slip even more. And there's a really crazy twist in this movie where she goes to meet somebody, and Robert Patrick sees something about this guy, and I don't want to spoil that because I did not see that coming, and I thought that was a really unique touch. At the same time, how sometimes the target that you have will become something else or be in danger, and you have to protect that target for yourself. And I thought that was kind of unique in a way, and I thought it was going to go a certain way. There's a couple really funny jokes in here for me. I think there's at least 3 STD jokes, and I Ricky Bates always does them. He does them with Excision, where the girl has the herpes because her dad gave her mouth to mouth and she was drowning in the pool. And there's at least 3 here. And I laughed out loud so hard when they were said in here. They said, "What are you doing tonight?" "I can't wait to give somebody herpes tonight." And I was just like, come on. And then there's a great line that says, if you're planning on doing, I'm spoiling some here, I'm sorry, but if you're planning on doing anything sexual, I have a horrible case of HPV that will melt your dick off, or something like that. And I was like, so funny to me. I'm just immature when it comes to that, I guess. But yeah, Robert Patrick is great in this, to watch him kind of slip and go crazy, and also he's like believing what he's doing, I think, and stuff. So it works well. Like he's coming from a certain point in this movie. It's just the millennial can be obnoxious at points and just like leave garbage around, and the differences that they have between them just drives them kind of nuts in some ways. But it has a nice payoff. There's some nice little quirky characters in here. Like I said, there's some gory scenes, and my favorite scene, hands down, and one of my favorite moments this year, has to be when Robert Patrick is walking around at night in his long johns and he has an encounter with a homeless person, and his, what happens. And that whole scene, I think, is brilliant. And I think the way he handles it and the way the camera is walking towards camera, and that's just wonderful if you've seen the movie. So I really enjoyed this one. I laughed a lot. I thought it was pretty decent. Nice setups, nice payoffs, and I think that Ricky Bates is a unique voice in these kind of movies. So I guess I would call them necessarily all horror movies, but genre movies, and I like his stuff. I still need to watch Trash Fire, but he's never disappointed me, and they always have the same sensibilities, even if they change in kind of tone. So yeah, tone deaf, good stuff.
I've lived a good life. I've done it all except for one thing. I don't know how it feels to kill someone. It's an itch I never got around to scratching.
You're firing me? Can you at least let me go at the end of the week? Come on, it's almost Free Lunch Friday. I deserve that meal.
Please don't make me call security.
Need to get out of the city for a bit. Consider this your eat, pray, love moment.
Well, I hope you have a lovely stay. Don't hesitate to call me if you need anything. I'm just down the road.
I'm gonna text you the address. If you call and I don't pick up,
I'm being objectified and tortured by a hillbilly.
I didn't really think this through. It just gets easier and easier.
Man can only take so much before he cracks.
Is that a tomahawk? Textbook cultural appropriation, man. Jesus.
Okay, the next one here is Satanic Panic by Chelsea Stardust. I wanted to check this one out because it sounded like a lot of fun. Obviously taking on the Satanic Panic of the 80s. So, yeah, and I'm going to notice some things in here, too. This is definitely making comments about, the boomer political stuff. And Knives Out did it, too. And me and Dustin talk about that. And sometimes that one I feel like shouldn't be dated. But these ones I feel like they can, like Tone Deaf and Satanic Panic, can be dated. And now, for some reason, Knives Out, being the genre it is, feels like it probably shouldn't be as dated, like doing those kind of pop culture references. I know I'm getting off on a tangent here, but Satanic Panic, we talk about Knives Out a little later, sorry. I'm supposed to be talking about Satanic Panic here. But yeah, Satanic Panic, like I said, this is about this poor girl who's her first day as a pizza delivery girl, gets, stiffed on all her tips. She ends up driving out of district to deliver a bunch of pizzas to these rich people. And the rich people are performing a satanic action to raise Baphomet, the big, crazy god from hell, and they need a virgin. Their virgin doesn't work out. She happens to be a virgin, so boom, they're going to use her for the sacrifice. Sacrifice. It's a comedy. It's goofy. It's funny. It has a lot of familiar faces in here. Rebecca Romijn, Jerry O'Connell. Geez, there's so many people in here. Jordan Ladd, AJ Bowen. There's even more I'm missing. I think that's Anna Faris in here. I want to say it is Anna Faris, but yeah. So there's a lot of familiar faces in here. The acting's pretty solid. It's pretty goofy and fun. It starts off super gory. I think there's a lot of kills and gore in here, and then they hit that top where you're like, oh, this is going to get really crazy, but they kind of pull back and there's not as many kills as I thought there would be. So that disappointed me a little bit, but I do like that the two protagonists in this movie are, you know, younger girls and they're fighting back. Also, like Tone Deaf, the main girl in that, fights back. I'm seeing that kind of theme this year where the victims are actually fighting back, and I'm happy. I'm so sick of victims being like, oh, don't kill me, fight back, guys. And it makes me feel better in the movies, male or female, when they fight back. You know, it's your life. You got to fight. You got to struggle. So I think most people would. A lot of people, at least. The ones I want to watch in a movie would. So, yeah, so they fight back, and what happens is she gets hooked up with the main devil worshiper, Rebecca Main, her daughter, and because she was the virgin, that, you know, she went and got defiled before they could sacrifice her. So it's those two versus the satanic cult chasing around a rich neighborhood. It's definitely doing the, you know, the rich people are really the messed up ones. That's how they stay on top with the things like that. There's some funny jokes in here. There's some decent gore when it's there. And all in all, it's all right. The ending is a little bit of a letdown. The ending kind of bothered me. I was like, it's kind of a cop-out. You could have went balls to the wall, but I'm sure budget constraints held it back. I bet it was supposed to be a bloodbath. I feel like it was, because the movie has some really good practical effects in here. Most of it's all practical. I don't think I noticed any CGI, and if they do it, they kind of go the old school way where they have like the sparks on the thing, and I thought that looked good. So, you know what? I did enjoy this one. It is pretty fun. I like the lead. I want her to pull through and everything like that. And they do a couple things in here which are a little bit more, you know, graphic than I thought. And one thing I will note is latex guts, or whatever they are, do not look as good as the real thing. So when you think Day of the Dead or City of the Living Dead with the real guts and intestines, you're like, that's just a different ballpark of disgusting. So yeah, Satanic Panic was fun. It's cute. I would check it out if it sounds like it's up your alley.
This job for the tips. 4 hours, my total earnings are an expired Applebee's coupon, a sweater that smells like racism.
It's exactly your size.
Oh,
Deliver for meal basement.
It's outside our zone.
I'll do it.
Are you ready to make an investment in your future?
Yes!
Are you ready to take back what you are owed?
Yes!
Are you ready to fully commit yourselves to Satan?
Yes!
Who are you?
I'm the pizza guy. A girl.
Are you by any chance a virgin?
That's a very personal question.
She's a virgin. Whose power unlocks our true potential?
Hail Satan!
Do you have any idea what's happening here tonight?
Hail Satan!
They are summoning Baphomet, the big demon from hell. And when that clock strikes 12, he is gonna rip you open.
Where's my virgin?
I don't know what's happening.
My mom and her butt buddies are booty calling Baphomet.
Hail Satan!
And they're not going to stop until you're strapped to a barbed wire altar. That's bonkers.
Any idea why the rich stay rich and you stay screwed?
Better health care.
Hail Satan!
They are stronger than us.
No virgin, no sacrifice. Let me protect you.
Oh, who are you people?
Death to the weak, wealth to the strong.
Hail Satan!
I should stop drinking.
You really want to face this over?
Get that mean lady!
I'm sorry!
Okay, this next one here, what is it? From Dark Side Releasing? This is Virgin Cheerleaders in Chains. Yeah. The title, you know, I bet it's a take on Girls in Chains or Schoolgirls in Chains. So here we go. This is a weird one. This is a meta horror movie. It's about, the first half of this movie is a group of people trying to get the funds together to make a horror movie. So we have that. And the second half of the movie is them becoming into a horror movie. We went to go make this horror movie in this isolated place using these people, and a lot of these people turn out to be psychos, and they start killing us. We have to fight back and survive. Sometimes it'll be the point of view of the camera, or somebody filming camera, interviews with the cast who seemingly survived the incident, which kind of spoils things if you're watching a slasher, and then it will be kind of just like regular filmmaking and stuff like that. So basically, the first half of the movie is them trying to get the budget, then trying to get everything together, and it feels kind of weird. It feels like people who make mid-tier budget movies trying to see how people who make no-budget movies make, and I don't feel like it. I don't know how accurate it is, to be honest. I know that Dustin doesn't make his movies like that, but Dustin makes movies for very cheap and stuff like that. Other directors I've worked with don't either. They make them very cheap, so I don't know how accurate this is, but this probably takes place in, like LA area, so maybe super low-budget movies are made like this. So basically, the first 30 minutes of that is setting up the characters and trying to find the budget and talking about the movie. And the lead character in this movie is really kind of a simpleton. He's very dumb. He could get the money if he would just write the script, but he doesn't want to write the script because he has writer's block, so he doesn't write the script. And that kind of stuff. It's just like, okay, the best characters in the movie tend to be his girlfriend and the stripper, who ends up being the highlight of the movie. So that's kind of nice. There's a super annoying character in here who's a white guy who's doing a Rastafarian accent, constantly smoking weed. I don't get that. There's a couple setups in here with the weapons and everything like that. It's not a knife, it's a machete, or why don't we use this, my pocket knife. So they do a couple setups in here. The special effects, when they happen towards the end of the movie, when it becomes an actual kind of like a horror movie, they're decent. There's some blood splatter, there's some goo and stuff like that. It is a low-budget film, you can tell that. So I wonder how much the budget actually was. I wonder if it was $8,000, what they said that they were trying to raise in their movie was. I wouldn't be surprised. But the acting, like I said, it ranges. I don't think anybody's tremendously bad. I do think some of the characters are a little whack. Like I said, whack. Now I'm like 1993 all over again. But a little bit ridiculous. Like the Rastafarian guy and his whole, what happens to him is just eye-rollingly stupid. So the tone of this movie, at times, it feels like maybe some of the killers are really dark and dirty and nasty, and sometimes maybe you should have the characters like the killers play it straight and other things not play it straight, but then you'll have really goofy moments. And one of the goofy moments actually was very funny and effective when it looks like they're jumping off this balcony and it looks very high, and then the guy gets hurt and he's like, jump, you gotta jump, and then it pans out and the guy's only jumping from like 3 feet, and you're just like. And there's also that deal where they have all these characters established, and then within 10 minutes, all of them are dead. So you're like, then we're going to stretch out like 3 people running for 30 minutes, and, that can get old. Again, I do like that the characters fight back, and they actually kill some of the baddies. That was entertaining. And the very end, it's just like, oh, we're doing this next level kind of, I don't want to spoil too much, but meta approach. It's okay. I don't think it's perfect or anything like that. I do think it's maybe worth checking out, a mild recommendation. I do think it's clever to a certain extent, but we've already been here with this whole meta approach and self-aware approach of we're making a movie and we become trapped within a movie, and we're also being interviewed about our experiences within the movie. So like it might take another layer than a lot of the other ones, but I think we've been here before with stuff like maybe Behind the Mask, but I know we have seen stuff like this before. And the next movie I'm going to talk about is similar to this as well. So if this sounds like it's up your alley, then check it out. Watch the trailer. In Virgin Cheerleaders and Change, you're going to expect, a lot of TNA. It's not there. So don't be disappointed. And I think that's kind of funny too, that they're like, yeah, Virgin Cheerleaders and Change. People are like, there's going to be so much TNA in here, with that plays on that the director's obviously naming it that, so people will be interested in it within the movie. And they're obviously film fans. They mention like Herschel Gordon Lewis and things like that. So they're fans of, independent horror movies. So that is Virgin Cheerleaders and Chains.
We don't have our bad guy yet.
Yeah. You need somebody to chain up Virgin Cheerleaders? I'm your man, buddy.
Cut! V-I-R-G-I-N, Cheerleaders in Chains.
What is it?
A horror movie.
Is there another kind?
Boo-shaka-man! V-I-R-G-I-N, Cheerleaders in Chains.
Virgin Cheerleaders in Chains. Virgin Cheerleaders in Chains. Virgin cheerleaders in chains. Once they're bound, they will feel the pain. You'll hear them scream as they're being maimed. Virgin cheerleaders in chains.
Okay, this next one here, this is a doozy. This is a strange film. This is called Flesh Blanket. Yeah, this is also in a similar vein to Virgin Cheerleaders in Chains, where we have basically a documentary crew that wants to make a movie about this comedian who is kind of worshiping his idol Lenny Bruce, who's, you know, a first stand-up comedian who was really raunchy and broke a lot of rules, got arrested for things, you know, very set, you know, the bar for comedians and changed a lot of things. So this group of comedians, especially this one guy, I can't think of his name. He's a very big guy. He wants to, you know, idolize this guy and do a whole, you know, comedy tour, you know, for free speech. So they basically want to push buttons everywhere they can. But we start to have interviews with the director in the movie pop out and say, I didn't see this kind of stuff coming. I guess I should have. So we learn that something tragic happens, and we're kind of in that same vein of Virgin Cheerleaders in Chains, where we're outside listening to the inside of this guy, and we're seeing the footage that they recovered from the event. So what happens is it starts off introducing all the characters. We have, you know, a bunch of different stand-up comedians. So some of them, which I think are probably all real comedians, males, females, and they start to get raunchy a little bit. There's, you know, girls, you know, stripping and stuff like that. And then he starts to lose his cool, the big guy, because he's like, this isn't what this is about. So we have a bunch of scenes where he's having like mental breakdowns and losing his mind. And we have some good stand-up bits, or some stand-up bits. Some of the people are very annoying. But there's a really funny joke in here that killed me, where this one guy gets up there and somebody's eating during his set, and he's like, this guy hasn't looked up for me at all. He's been eating the whole time. Hey man, what'd you get on your SATs? Barbecue sauce? And I could not stop laughing. It was so good to me. So that ranges in quality. The one complaint is, obviously the big guy's going to snap and he's going to start killing people, and he kills a bunch of them. The title Flesh Blanket comes from one of the kills. Won't spoil that. The acting is decent. You know, I don't think it's bad, especially like kind of a found footage deal and everything like that. The sound sometimes a little rough to hear, but that probably what they're going for. At the same time, it's still distracting, you know. I wish there was more kills. I know that's kind of a weird complaint. I wish there was a more variety of kills in here. I wish that it maybe had a big slaughter scene to a certain extent. I know they're probably trying to play this down to a more realistic level, but I mean, I'm not going to buy it anyways because I've seen so many of these. But maybe that would have ruined the movie. Maybe don't listen to me. But I do think it's kind of interesting to a certain extent. We have the comedy tour going crazy, which I don't think I've seen quite yet. I don't think I've seen the... I have seen the documentaries Gone Wrong, obviously. We have Virgin Cheerleaders in Chains kind of deal. We have Behind the Mask. It's been a genre now for a while, so this one might interest you. I've never heard many people talk about it. So yeah, it's a Flesh Blanket. Kind of interesting.
My name is Brandon Graham, and I set out to make a cutting-edge documentary on freedom of speech.
I'm going to do for comedy what Al Gore did for global warming. I'll give you $13,000. It's a deal. What?
I really had some big comedians who were interested in the project. That all sort of went out the window.
T-Rex, Kato Kalin.
Hi, get Kato.
Adam Hunter. He's not doing killing and grilling, that's for damn sure.
A bad call.
Enjoy the chicks, we'll enjoy the movie.
Everything went terribly wrong. This is what happened.
No.
It became very clear very quickly that this movie was not about a bunch of ragtag comedians pushing the limits of freedom of speech. It was about an oversized comedian who was on the verge of a nervous breakdown.
I didn't sleep at all. Life is filled with sadness and pain and suffering. All the comics are far more concerned with rounding up strange women to have sex with than any kind of thing involving free speech. We get to live free, and people died for that. Oh. This is a lot harder than I thought it would be. What's the matter?
I don't know, you're like touching me close. Weird.
You can't be fat and a dick. Pick one.
If you cry, I swear to God, I will knock your head through the roof.
Ramsey, what are you doing? Ramsey, what are you doing?
Okay, this next one here is from MVD, and this is Ever After. This is actually on Shudder. This is a zombie film, so yeah, we got a couple zombie films this year. Ever After, a German zombie film. In this world, there's been two cities, one that eradicates the dead on sight and one that's looking for a cure. We have two characters who are stuck in the eradication city. All the other places are zoned off. No one can go through them. These are fast-moving zombies. They are terrifying. They will affect you with a bite or a scratch. So one of these girls seems to have some mental problems. She's kind of been isolated. She's in a mental institution area where she kind of just is around plants and everything like that. And she eventually wants to get out. She volunteers to help, to work on the fence outside, to patch up the fence and do things like that. What happens is the girl who kind of is training her a bit makes a mistake and someone gets killed out there. And she gets scratched. So this girl who with the mental illness, there's basically a cargo bus or cargo train that goes from city to city with nobody driving it. It's all automatic. They load it up. She decides to sneak on there, the girl with the mental illness, because she has some unfinished business. She has a kind of a dark past where something happened to a loved one, and she wants to make it right. The other girl who's been infected wants to go to the city to find a cure. So they both kind of escape. Something goes wrong where they have to be together, and this relationship starts with them. Obviously, they're from two different worlds. It definitely has that kind of thing where the girl who seems useless actually is probably the strongest. The one who seems the weakest might be the strongest due to her compassion, if that makes any sense. It kind of goes with that route. And you realize that the zombies are not necessarily just zombies anymore. They're starting to morph, to change, to kind of mix in with the grass and greenery, and that kind of goes back to her being involved with the plants in the beginning of the movie. So you see this kind of aspect where the zombies are mutating, and maybe it's an evolutionary state, and you actually meet someone who isn't a zombie that's starting to do that evolutionary state where it seems to be maybe Mother Nature herself. Kind of weird, kind of strange in that aspect. But what happens here is they have to do their unfinished business without spoiling too much. And there's nice flashbacks back to their life and nice dramatics here. I like the relationship between the two girls. I think that they're both it's very well done. I buy it. There's some scary moments. The cinematography's top notch. It's shot in a wonderful location. They show this whole area off. There's wide shots of walking across a bridge that look beautiful. There's trees. There's great scenery. The zombies look really good. The special effects are good. When there's gore. It looks good. There's some dramatic moments that I really enjoyed. All in all, it's a solid zombie movie. It's a good zombie movie, and it incorporates some different mutations and everything like that. And the ending's a little bit it's kind of a feel-good ending compared to a lot of zombie films, but I liked it. I would recommend checking it out. Like I said, it's very well shot, and it's probably one of the prettiest looking movies of the year for sure. The cinematography, like I said, is top notch and everything like that, and they use the forest wonderfully. And there's this one zombie that's like a bride, and she has like the roots and stuff growing through her, and she's terrifying, and she's pretty scary stuff. So yeah, good stuff. Ever After.
Ich werde sie nicht los.
Wen?
Alle, deren Leben ich beendet habe.
Ich bin schuld, dass meine Schwester tot ist. Ich bin schuld.
Niemand hat Schuld an dem, was damals passiert ist. Wichtig ist, wir sind noch da.
Stimmt, es haben nur die Arschlöcher überlebt.
Arschlöcher müssen zusammenhalten. Es sind viele.
Okay, the next one's going to be a quickie. I watched it on Hulu, and this is Wounds. This is by the same director of Under the Shadow, which came out a few years ago, which I didn't get a chance to see. And this stars Armie Hammer, and yeah. So, okay, what we have here, it's kind of an interesting setup right here. We have Armie Hammer's kind of this bartender, kind of a loser. Not really somebody I want to follow in a movie for an hour and a half. And he's kind of obsessed with this girl who works there, even though he's in a relationship, and she has a boyfriend. You know, they've been friends for a long time. So what happens is they're all at this bar, and there's a group of kids there who are drinking underage, and this big kind of oaf and his buddies come in. He's friends with Armie Hammer, and the oaf gets in a big old fight with a big, like, kind of a brutal fight with this other guy, and they both get messed up in it, and what happens is the college kids run out, they leave their cell phone. Armie Hammer picks up the cell phone, and he realizes he somehow gets it open, and he sees all these messed up text messages like, help me, save me, I need help. He kind of thinks it's a joke. He looks at some of the pictures later on after that, and there's more pictures of somebody's being decapitated. It looks like one of the kids, and all these kind of weird occult things. So after that, he kind of falls down this weird kind of tunnel, this spirals out of control into wondering what's happening with this cell phone, with these kids, with this occult stuff, and he doesn't necessarily know what's happening to him. His girlfriend gets involved, their relationship kind of falls apart, and he starts to lose his kind of grip on reality, especially after he makes a call on the phone. The kids are after the phone. You never really fully know exactly what kind of occult things there are. It seems like it might be based in some sort of mythology that I'm unfamiliar with, and they kind of glimpse at it a little bit, but I was never invested enough in the characters to care enough to put that much effort into finding exactly what it is. But it's called Wounds, so Armie Hammer starts to develop some sort of thing under his armpit where it's kind of an open sore, and the guy who's in a bar fight seems to be kind of like really sick, and he's upstairs and he has this gaping wound in his face. So there's lots of things going on here, and I don't necessarily know 100% what's going on, to be honest, and I'm not sure exactly how it unfolded into what it was, but I never was invested enough to care because Armie Hammer is one of these guys who's like, hey, I work in a bar, I'm always drunk, I'm just not, faithful to my girlfriend, and I'm just not care about anybody else's boundaries. He's kind of just like, I guess you'd want him to be kind of a lovable loser. I never felt that way about him, but he kind of loses his grip on reality. He is a good actor, though, and it's a solid performance. And for the most part, the performances are all solid in here. It's just a movie that I kind of feel is mixing such a modern place like bars and technology in with this weird occult stuff, and it just feels off to me, if that makes any sense. It just doesn't mash well, and it doesn't come together, to be honest, for me at all. There's some cool imagery in here, especially some of the flashes of the weird mutant blob eye thing, which I thought was kind of gross. So there's that, and there's the roaches crawling everywhere and stuff like that, and the building of them popping up everywhere. And it has the guy from Love in there, so that was also nice to see him pop up, the Gaspar Noé movie. He has a decent-sized role in here. So this is take it or leave it. I'm a little iffy on it. It's called Wounds. It's on Hulu, so yeah.
It's quiet in here tonight.
We'll get the bottle out of that guy's hand.
It's probably one of the kids.
Who were you talking to last night?
There was these college kids who left a cell phone there. And I went through it to see whose it was. You don't want to see it. You don't want to see it. It's awful.
We have been something.
I'm scared. You're scared too.
If you ever need to talk, I'm here for you.
You're acting guilty as shit.
They made me do it.
Okay, the next one here is a Patreon pick from Jason Willard, and he picked Little Monsters. This is also on Hulu. This is the other zombie movie that I saw this year. So, Little Monsters. I love zombie movies. This is an Australian flick. It stars the lead from Us in here. She's great in this. She's also great in Us. And she plays a completely different performance in this one from what she plays in Us. So what we have here is, again, we have the lovable loser. That's another theme we have going on here. So this lovable loser guy, he lost his girlfriend. He was kicked out. He used to be in a band. That's all he has. He lives with his sister and her son. So basically, what happens is he starts to get the hots for his nephew's teacher, who is played by the woman in Us. So he volunteers to go on a field trip. And what happens on the field trip is there's a military base nearby, zombie apocalypse, all these zombies break out, they attack this kind of petting zoo area. And also meanwhile at this petting zoo area is all the kids' favorite kind of television icon, I guess not Pee Wee Herman, but somewhere like that, I guess Blue's Clues kind of guy, played by Josh Gad. So basically, yeah, there's a zombie apocalypse. We have a bunch of kindergarten, or like second, third, first graders, whatever they are, trying to survive. We have the douchebag musician who is going to have that turnaround point. We have this teacher, and we have Josh Gad, who's a completely despicable monster. But you get it because he's like the TV show kid host, but then on the outside and then the inside, he's this little son of a bitch. So the tone of this movie is really weird. It feels kind of like in the world of Superbad, like, it's a zombie comedy, but it has like that raunchy Superbad humor where like there's some nudity, there's some real off-color jokes and gross jokes and things like that. But then we also have, the gore from zombie movies. The special effects are really good and they work. And then we have this super cutesy stuff, like the kids singing Taylor Swift and eventually the guy singing it too and getting taken over by the kids. So it's like super cutesy. It's like these three kind of genres from three different decades all mixing into one. We're familiar with zombie comedies. We're familiar with that raunchy comedy. But usually with the cutesy stuff, it doesn't you really go into this, and it has all those things. The only thing this movie really has against it, like I said, it's well made, it's well acted, it's really kind of touching and heartwarming. Its only knock, and it's a major knock, is highly predictable. But when do you start judging movies? Like every slasher movie in the world's highly predictable, and we love it for it. So do I really hold the movie against a movie for being really highly predictable? Like, which characters are going to die. You know when they're going to die. You know all the setups and payoffs even before they happen and things like that. So that's really the only knock on the movie. I did enjoy it. I thought it was funny. I thought that the special effects were good. The one complaint too is Josh Gad is they want him to be like that so miserable piece of crap. He's funny, but he's so miserable he's not funny. Like I was just like, I don't care. He sucks. I just want him dead. He's just too miserable to be funny. And the lead guy is such a loser for 70% of the movie that you're like, I don't want to watch him either. He does redeem himself eventually and you like him. But for that first 70% of the movie, he is so miserable. But all in all, it's really fun and it's definitely worth checking out. And it's super cutesy and gory and raunchy, which is a weird combination.
Lieutenant, sir, why are we here?
It's zombies again.
Fast ones or slow ones, sir?
Slow.
Thank God they're slow.
Next stop, Pleasant Valley. Hi-ho, Teddy!
Aren't we having a super fun time on our trip?
I want you all in the line in front of me and away we go.
Why are we stopping?
Must be something in the way.
What is it, Miss Caroline?
Stop the tractor!
Are you okay?
Yes! Don't be scared. Who remembers how to play tag? Well, those funny-looking people out there are it.
Go away!
We have kids out here!
Oh my God! I don't give a shit!
What's happening?
We're all gonna die.
Are we gonna die, Miss Caroline?
No. It's part of the game. The zombies are not real.
Like fuck they're not!
It is a bit scary.
What are we doing? We're scared. What's the song we can sing?
If you're happy and you know, clap your hands.
We can't stay here indefinitely.
I'm not going anywhere. You're bigger idiots than I thought, and I thought you were both the stupidest people I've ever met.
If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.
job is to keep you safe. Stay here until I get back.
If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.
That kind of behavior is unacceptable.
Max started
Max
it.
is 5 years old. And if you can't use appropriate language with a 5-year-old, I'm going to have to ask you to disembark the tractor trailer and wait for us back at the bus.
If you're happy and you know it, then you make some show. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands.
How do you like it, huh? Oh, God, what have I done?
Ew, what's that?
Oh, I got caught in the middle of a jam fight. Don't taste it, okay?
Hey guys, what's up? We just got out seeing, what the hell was that movie called?
Knives Out.
Never heard of it. All right, this is a brand new movie. What? Came out yesterday, Tuesday?
Something like that,
So
yeah.
we're going to shoot these in a week advance anyways. Ryan Johnson directed this?
Mm-hmm.
And
Who did Brick and Looper.
And he did the Star Wars ones,
He
right?
did Last Jedi.
Okay.
Yeah, just Last Jedi, which I think is cool and everybody hates.
I didn't watch it, but
I like
my
it.
friend told me it was awful.
Yeah.
Like, he went on a tirade and he never does
I've heard
that.
a lot
So-
of tirades about it, but I think it's good.
All right, so I wanted to see this because it looked like kind of like a throwback to the old Gothic murder mystery movies, like Clue or something, like more so like Spotlight on a Murderer, but kind of like poking fun at the genre to a certain extent.
I thought it was Hitchcockian, right? Like
Yeah.
it had a sly sense of humor, but it was clever. Maybe less morbid than a Hitchcock movie, but
Yeah, a little bit more goofy.
Mhm.
A little bit more goofy. Well, the
More-
cast is amazing.
more comedy, yeah, great cast.
The cast is amazing. We got Jamie Lee Curtis, Daniel Craig, Don Johnson, Michael Shannon. Who else is in this? I know I'm missing
Chris
some.
Evans,
Yeah.
Ana de Armas, Christopher Plummer, that kid whose name I don't know, but I've seen him.
The
in
little
stuff.
kid?
Yeah, the kid who has like 3 lines in the movie. I can't.
I've seen him
I've
too,
seen
and I
his
never-
fucking face, but I don't remember who he is.
You know what shocked me? Noah Sagan was in this.
I don't know who
He
that is.
played the dumb cop.
Oh, okay, he looked familiar to me, but
He's in Dead Girl.
Oh, okay.
I like the movie, but he's like a guy who's on a lower budget level stuff.
Yeah,
Like he's
yeah.
in, I think he's in Trent Haga movies and stuff. So I
Oh,
was like,
that's cool.
when I saw him, I was like, one of the guys, he's making it right there. I'm sure he's done.
Yeah,
been
he's
working.
good in it, too. I liked
He's
him
very
in the
funny.
movie, yeah.
He's like the tie to the audience in the movie.
And then the main detective is in Get Out. I recognize him from Get Out.
Yeah, everybody looks familiar. Everybody has a familiarity to them. They're all professional actors.
Yeah.
The plot of this movie is essentially kind of this billionaire who writes mystery novels he dies under mysterious circumstances, and the family kind of gathers together for the funeral and the reading of the will. Daniel Craig enters, and he's like a professional sleuth to try to figure out exactly what happened. And some bumbling cops are also involved.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much the setup.
They're not really bumbling. The one guy's a little bumbling.
Only so he's just like nerding out in fandom.
Yeah, he's a fan of Christopher Plummer, who's the character that's not a spoiler. He's dead in the trailer.
Yeah.
He's the guy who dies, and one of the cops is a fan of his novel, so he's like a mystery novel nerd.
It's kind of predictable to a lot of ways. Like the vague details are predictable. You can kind of see these things coming, but I guess it took me a while to realize that's not the charm of the movie. The charm of the movie is how they're going to show it to you.
It's the journey, not the destination.
Exactly, because I was like, I right like 10 minutes in, I was like this, and I said something, and like I kept saying that, and then I was just thinking, oh, they're not making it that obvious.
Yeah.
I'm not that smart.
In fact, they kind of almost solve it for you about a half an hour in, and then they just watch it unravel. But I will say this, and I said this in theater, like, you and I see those things because we've watched so many movies that we understand filmic language. We understand the language of cinema. And so we know that when a good director shows you something,
it's not just random.
It's not just random. There's a reason he showed you that shot. So you and I do that. I don't think like anybody else in the theater with us probably knew that stuff.
I was subconsciously doing it, like setups. There's tons of setups and payoffs and everything in here.
That's like porn to me, by the way, is when they set something up. Like there's stuff from like the first shots of the movie that pays off like way in the end of the movie. That's just like little things, and like that is like my favorite.
Oh,
thing.
I thought you were talking about the porn you watch is all setups.
No.
Dude, there's no setup in porn.
When
I
there's-
fast forward through that stuff.
When there's a setup and a payoff in a movie, it's
like film porn.
It's pornographic to me. Yeah.
Okay. It's always good when it's a great reveal.
Yeah.
Although I would compare this to like giallos because those are so much harder to follow a lot of times, and maybe it's like slight plot holes, style over substance here.
Mhm.
And I think this is a good combination of style and substance. I think it's both.
I honestly think that maybe what they were going for, and there's a direct reference to it because you see it playing on TV. Is there's an episode of Murder, She Wrote playing?
Yeah.
And so I think like maybe he was referencing. Man, now that I'm thinking about it, That's like, it's like a long episode of Columbo.
Hey, now, remember that? You're a Columbo person? Like, he gets it and he comes back and everybody thinks they're free. And
Yeah,
they
he
say,
goes,
wait a second.
One last thing.
And then you're fucked. And you hear him say one last thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of Daniel Craig.
Let's just take one more question. Yeah, exactly.
Daniel Craig is really funny in this.
He's very good at it. I can tell that he likes to do a southern accent because he did it in Logan Lucky too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's good at it, but you can tell like he likes doing that. Like he really, it's delicious for him to do that southern accent.
Chris Evans had one of the best lines, one of the best insults in that movie. When
Yeah.
he walked in, he's like kind of the asshole grandson. And he heard Daniel Craig. He's like, he's thinking, what the hell's this guy doing here? He walks in, what is this, CSI KFC? Because he's got the southern accent.
Yeah, that was good.
It was pretty good.
There's a lot of little good like lines that get thrown out. Some of them in ADR, like you kind of hear them in the background that are really funny.
Yeah.
There's lots of little like digs, like the family getting under each other's skin and stuff like that.
I got to give it up for Don Johnson, because Don Johnson as a kid was Nash Bridges. He was, what was the other show he was on? What was he? What was?
I don't know.
Was he on
outside Nash.
Miami Vice? No.
Yeah.
It was.
I think
Yeah.
it's
So
Miami
when I was a
Vice.
kid, I saw Don Johnson as kind of just like a TV write-off actor.
Kind of a joke.
And within the last 10 years, he's been getting such good source material and been pretty much the highlight in almost every movie he's in. So it goes to show you, he's the number one example, I would say, that most actors and actresses are good. It's just they give him shit.
I'd like to see more of him, and you know who I'd like to see more of, and I think he's kind of been in a lot of stuff lately, is Martin Kove. You know who Martin Kove is?
Yeah, from Karate Kid and House on the Left.
Popping up and stuff, and he's in VFW, which I saw at Nightmares Film Festival, and he's great in that. But I like it when old actors who have kind of maybe been away for a minute or been under the radar more, they kind of start popping back up and stuff.
Well, speaking of old actors who've been under the radar, Emmett Walsh makes an appearance in this
that's
movie,
right.
and it blew my mind. Right when I heard his voice off screen, I was like, that motherfucker's still
I knew
alive.
from the voice, too.
Me
I was like, oh.
I knew it was that guy. That guy's been acting, and you know what? He still had his wits about him. Sometimes you see old actors like Sid Haig in the last Devil's Rejects movie, Three from Hell. He just was like, he didn't not have his wits. He just didn't have the energy. And Emmett Walsh was like,
yeah, he was.
Came right
he
in.
was full 100% Emmett Walsh.
It didn't change. That guy's got to be pushing 100.
He looks like he is. He's looking old.
He's looking rough.
Yeah,
but it's a funny movie. It's a comedy almost first before it's a comedy mystery. I would say I wouldn't put this in a horror.
I would
category.
say an equal. No, it's not horror at all.
No.
But I would say equal parts comedy and mystery.
Yeah.
And it's a mystery in a very old fashioned kind of sense.
Yeah.
Like they don't make movies like this anymore.
It's definitely a shadow.
I think it's. Here's the thing. I really liked it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like gonna go down as like one of the greats.
No, it's
a little too timely. They make a lot of like 2019 references in it.
Yeah, the argument with the political stuff was.
There were things there were some lines where I was like, take that out so this movie can be evergreen, because if you tweak the script a little bit to be less timely of the like current era, I think it could be like, oh, let's teach this movie in film classes, and then go back and teach the movies that it's
exactly. It's a good gateway to those other movies. I watched a lot of movies this year so far, and the top echelon right now are like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as far as non-horror movies are concerned. I don't think it's top. It doesn't even come close to that.
No.
I mean, this is like, to me, it's a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
Almost borderline great. 7 out of 10, somewhere like that. 7.5, somewhere, almost great. But I would watch it again, but I wouldn't rush to see it.
Mm-hmm. It's very, very, very good.
Yeah.
It's just like not classic status. But here's what's cool about it, and I was thinking about this one. You can take your mom or your grandma or your aunt or anybody, and that's kind of cool because they don't make a lot of movies for grown-ups that are also kind of safe anymore.
The
you know
kid,
what I mean?
was that PG-13?
I think it was PG-13. They drop a couple F-bombs, but I think it's
didn't even
PG-13.
notice it was PG-13, so
Yeah.
that's a good sign there.
But clearly a movie for grown-ups, though.
Yes,
Like, not a kid's movie.
It's intelligent, and I was got to give it up to the kid who was like 10 years old next to. What a trooper! Didn't say one damn word.
Yeah, there's like a 10-year-old kid next to us. I'm like literally right next to us because there's assigned seatings in our theaters, and like apparently his mom or grandma or whoever he's with just like picked the seat right next to us.
Weird.
So it was a little awkward.
Weird.
A little awkward that there's a child like right here. But I was like, I guess he's gonna watch this movie.
And his mom reinforced it too. He tried to move over a seat, and she's like, "No, if someone else comes, they're gonna want that seat."
And I'm like, "No, lady, let him move." Or you sit next to me, so at least I'm sitting next to an adult in a dark room. I felt a little weird.
I would recommend checking this out in theaters. The house is beautiful. It has a great fall atmosphere with the leaves and everything like that. It's definitely going for that gothic deal, but it's a throwback to a genre that's dead.
Yeah, and wonderful production values and design. I thought the cinematography was excellent.
Yeah.
Not in just the way it's like lit and the look of it, but they did some really fun camera moves. There's a lot of like push-ins, and some of them were subtle, some of them were not so subtle, but they were always appropriate. The editing is good. Like they did a good job like cutting between spans of time. There may have been holes in it, but I didn't notice any off the bat.
One hole right away, but then they kind of covered their tracks a little bit with the dogs.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, but then I was like, okay.
I knew
that makes sense.
you leaned over and you're like, plot hole, and I was like, nah,
They better fix it.
They'll
They
fix
did fix
it,
it almost immediately after I said it. Should have just kept my mouth shut.
Yeah, because they wouldn't have showed us. Like at that point, I trusted Rian Johnson to be like, he's not going to show us if he doesn't have a reason behind it.
Yeah, I would.
Here's another thing. Written and directed by the same guy. Rian Johnson wrote it and directed it.
That's good.
Which is pretty, also kind of rare these days for a movie that big.
A movie like that, you'd want the writer on set if you did write it.
Mhm.
Because, I feel like the writer has to know how the story is going to unfold to tell it properly. Because they're jumping through time here.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
it's one of these movies that shows you the same thing 5 or 6 times, but just will stretch it out a little bit longer, a different camera angle from somebody else's different point of view. Kind of like Jackie Brown at some point, but this one's edited in between time, too.
And they're good at, like, planting memorable visuals in your head so that you always know where you are in time. They're good at making sounds or a visual reference. Because I think that's another thing. The production design served the theme of the movie. It was like people interacted with like the sets and stuff like that, like especially in the climax of the film.
It's all set up too.
If the house felt like a character, it felt like it was integral to the film, which I thought was cool. A lot of stuff you just don't see very often anymore.
No,
I feel like
it was smart writing.
Yeah,
and
writing.
it was good execution.
Mm-hmm. Good acting. Too long, I think.
A little too long.
Because here's the thing I was thinking about. Like, there was a point in the movie where I was like, this feels long, and I realized it's because all those old, like, great mystery movies, very rarely even 2 hours. You know, like, some of the older ones are, like, 75 minutes.
Yeah,
you
and
know,
then they just end abruptly. There's no resolution.
Yeah, then they solve the case. Done.
The
Over.
very rare case of resolution was in Psycho, and it's the only dated part of the movie.
Yeah, it's the part of the movie that sucks.
With Simon Oakland, like, so he really thought he was a woman.
Yeah, he's like, let me explain the plot to everyone.
Well, back then, I don't think you'd have to do that.
Yeah.
Now, you do. I
Yeah.
think you really do now.
Well, back then, apparently you did too, because they did. Like, that's why they did.
Because Daniel Craig literally explains everything at the very end.
He does, but because he needs to.
Well,
for you to understand everything. But what they did that was nice is that it's hard not to spoil the movie, but I'm going to try very hard. There's a piece of the movie, a story, okay, that one character has. And she has to tell that story like 5 times. But the movie only tells the audience it once and then finds ways to cut away so that we don't have to hear it again and again and again. Which I appreciated because I hate when movies pound it into your brain like you're an idiot. And I don't think this really did that too much.
No. Donut line is probably the best.
That was great.
That was a very good line. And the way that people that don't deliver lines often don't realize how hard that line would have been to deliver well.
Yeah.
Like, without, like, twisting your tongue up. Like, if they put the same kind of line in twice next to each other in, like, the thing, you'll mix those up all the freaking time.
That's a writer's line.
Yeah.
That's the line that where as a writer you write it and you're like, oh, this is so good. And then you give it to an actor and they're like, how am I supposed to say this shit?
It doesn't make any sense.
And
Donut
you're like,
within a donut?
And you're like, in your head, you're like, no, it's there. I know how you're supposed to say it, you know. But Daniel Craig's a pro, so...
Yeah, those guys are all pros.
Yeah.
Christopher Plummer also had some good lines in there.
Yeah.
He was very charming.
I think Ana de Armas is that's perfect casting in that movie.
She was the lead?
Yeah.
What else is she in?
She's in Knock Knock.
Okay.
She's in Blade Runner 2049.
Okay.
That's all that I think I've seen her in.
You know, I'm bad with new non-horror movies.
Yeah,
I'm terrible at that.
Yeah,
so.
she's the blonde in Knock Knock, if you remember.
I didn't watch Knock Knock.
Oh, you didn't
I'm
see
terrible.
Knock Knock?
I'm terrible about
I mean,
comedies from that time period. She's very good, though. You know what I liked about the characters in the movie? They're all kind of despicable, but they all have shreds of decency that make them okay. Like,
they have shreds of humanity.
I
don't know about decency. Yeah.
Because I didn't hate them all.
Yeah.
I didn't really hate any of them. I enjoyed watching them all, most certainly.
Yeah.
And Michael Shannon's still creepy. Still creepy.
He's so good.
And the way he delivers his lines is always like, well, maybe. You never trust that guy in a movie ever. I don't trust him at all.
Yeah.
So I'd give it a recommend. I don't have much more to say.
Yeah, I would recommend it. I would see it in theaters so that, because I let me get on my soapbox for a second. I think that it's important to give your ticket money to movies like this and be appreciative that we don't get movies like this very often. I thought the same thing when Unsane came out, the Steven Soderbergh movie.
I bought it. I missed it, though, in theaters.
I really like Unsane. It's a nice little sleazy thriller. And nobody makes sleazy thrillers except David Fincher, and when he does them, they cost $150 million. So, like, stuff like that, I'm like, go out and see it and give it your ticket money, because, like, I like superhero movies. I like them. I do too. I like little $5 million horror movies. What I don't like is when those are the only things that are playing at the theater.
Well, it's like a superhero movie is a movie for me. It's not something that I like. I love films. You know what I mean? Or I love like cult items. Superhero movies are, the modern day popcorn movie, and some modern day popcorn movies, it's very rare for them to cross over into something special. And the Marvel movies just really don't do it for me.
They've become pretty disposable.
Yeah. And did you see, I know this is off on a tangent, but screw it. Did you see that one point, who's the guy who runs Marvel? Feig?
It's either
Kevin Feige
or Feig, yeah.
Whatever the hell his name is. He was, people were saying, those movies don't take chances, yada, and he was like, well, actually, we killed off half our characters in the movie, so we like to do things like that. We like to take chances.
You brought him back immediately!
We all knew, you stupid fuck. Shut the fuck up. That's the problem with action movies nowadays. The Rock needs to be getting killed in some movies.
Yeah, man.
They did it to guys like, even John Wayne dies.
Did you hear about I didn't know about this, and now, like, let me tell you something. I'm a big Fast and the Furious fan. I have been since part 5. I don't like any of the other ones, but Tokyo Drift's okay. Starting with 5, I love those movies all the way up through 8. I like 5, 6, 7, and 8, okay? Hobbs and Shaw was a hunk of shit. But the thing but I also learned while they're making Hobbs and Shaw, this information came out that, like, The Rock, Jason Statham, and Vin Diesel all have things in their contract where they can't be beat in a fight in a movie. So, when you watch the movies, they do math. This is so weird. They're like, okay, headbutt is 2 points. So that means if you headbutt me once, I get to punch you twice. And they're dictating the way the fights are put together, so none of them look like they're losing. And that sucks!
It does suck, but at the same time, one of my favorite actors of all time, Charles Bronson, didn't want to act with guys that were taller than him. And stuff like that, so they do it. But the point is...
Stand on an apple box.
Bronson did get hit, but he never really got beat up. And Seagal never got beat up, but Arnold and
sucks.
Stallone and Van Damme always got the shit kicked out of them, and I enjoyed watching them the most as a kid. So
you need your hero to be a little vulnerable.
And you need them to actually have the fear of dying.
Yeah.
Like, I'm saying Westerns back in the day, Magnificent Seven. Yeah. How many of those guys bite it? 4 out of 7.
Yeah.
And it's sad, and you don't want them to die, but you're not going to watch if you got to have character struggles. And I'm just saying, Westerns used to not pull punches usually. I mean, the older ones did, but the ones, coming in like the 50s and on would not, they were darker.
Yeah. And the only people that get killed in Marvel movies are the villains who shouldn't be killed so they can come back in other movies.
Or a hero who they telegraph it for 6 fucking movies beforehand.
Yeah.
And it's just, like, so obvious. I don't know.
Now we're just 2 old guys.
2 old guys?
Bitching about new movies.
Back in my day.
Our heroes bled!
They were real blood. Alright. Well, I'm good on this one. Oh, you might as well plug Slaughterhouse Slumber Party. I think next week it will still be up, right?
Yeah, it'll still be up. We got like 18 days. Hey, Slaughterhouse Slumber Party's going on tour. We have a Kickstarter. If you search Slaughterhouse Slumber Party on tour, you'll find it, or Dave can put a link in the
There'll be a link.
If you want a copy of the movie, you missed it the first time, here's a way to get a copy. We're about to hit our first stretch goal because we're about to hit 300% funded, which is very cool. And all the money goes toward taking the movie on the road in 2020 to film festivals and conventions and wherever the hell else we can take it.
Cool. See Knives Out.
Yeah, see Knives Out. It's good. Go see it. Give them your ticket money.
Give them their money. They need your money.
Give them your fucking money. Man. Or lady. Or Zim and Zer.
What's Zim and Zer?
I think that's how some trans people like to be.
Is it?
I think so.
Would you call them non-binary? I'm old, so I'm just learning.
We should stop.
There's a thumbs down.
There's at least one.
I think you have something you want to tell me.
Harlan started out with a Rusty Smith Corona and built himself into one of the best-selling mystery writers of all time.
30 languages, over 80 million copies sold.
You guys fans?
I mean, I don't do much fiction reading myself.
Big fan. I'm a big fan.
Who is that guy?
Mr. Blanc is a private investigator of great renown.
I read a tweet about a New Yorker article about you. You're famous.
The night of his demise, the family had gathered to celebrate your father's 85th birthday. And your son, Ransom, did he attend as well?
Yes, but he left early.
I think Linda was upset.
Walt would get a little Irish courage in him. He'd get into it with Harlan.
What? Richard said what?
Are you baiting me, detective?
Attempting to be thorough so we can figure out the manner of death.
You mean if someone killed him? You think one of us, one of his family,
Walt.
killed him?
Mr. Blanc, I just buried my father who committed suicide. Why are you here?
I suspect foul play. I have eliminated no suspects. Harlan was cleaning house. Everyone in the family has possible motives.
Was Harlan planning on cutting off Joni?
Did he plan to fire Walter? Is Richard having an affair?
That's some heavy-duty conjecture.
Funny, Ransom, you skipped the funeral, but you're early for the will reading.
Up your ass.
Very nice.
Slap that
You gotta do this more often.
The family is truly desperate. When people get desperate, the knives come out. This is a twisted web. And we are not finished untangling it. Not yet.
I keep waiting for the big reveal.
All of them lied to me. There is one guilty party behind it all.
You know something. Spill it.
Oh my God.
Tell me what happened to my grandfather.
I think you have something you want to tell me.
Okay, the next one we're here to talk about is Jordan Peele's Us. The new one just came out. I actually didn't see Get Out. I wanted to. I bought it. Just didn't watch it.
I didn't see Get Out.
No, so I know I wish I did so I could make comments and comparisons to the two. But, okay, I put in Us, and this movie opens up in the 80s. And there's obviously the gimmick where they're filming Lost Boys because it's Santa Carla. They're like in the 80s. They're filming a movie over there. Go see if you can be an extra. And, again, it sets up a wonderful little, like, carnival scene or, like, circus scene. And that's like always something that's very nostalgic or perfect for horror movies. I mean, Lost Boys uses it, of course, Ghoulies too. So, especially in that 80s time frame. So, we open it up, a family, and like the little girl kind of wanders off and she wanders into this weird house of mirrors and she sees something that, you know, scars her for life. And we then fast forward to her with her own family. I love in the beginning of this movie how the parents are kind of obscured. You never really get a chance to look at them, but we understand that something psychologically damaging happened to her in that 5 minutes she was gone. Okay, so this is a movie about duality, doppelgangers, science gone mad, and it also turns into this giant kind of action, kind of almost big movie.
Yeah,
it starts off very personal and gets huge.
Post or pre-apocalyptic, I guess I would say.
It is apocalyptic.
It is
not
world
post.
ending.
It's just apocalyptic.
Yeah, pre.
So not pre. It's
Pre?
during.
During? Yeah.
So apocalyptic. Okay. Yeah, I really like this movie, and the first thing I would notice about it is I thought that the acting was tremendous. I thought all the characters in the movie were very good. And they all get to play dual roles because they go to their summer cabin, and it feels like most of the characters that they're focusing on are well off because they live in California and they have a second summer home, so they're definitely loaded. I mean, they have boats, they have all sorts of things. So, this family goes. They're a very nice family unit. They're all likable. There's a mother, father, and a daughter, and a son. So they go, and at night, almost pretty quickly. The first night, they see these kind of strange, weird families standing in their driveway, all dressed in red, all dressed in weird outfits. And they start attacking them, and soon they realize that they are them. They're us, in a way.
Right. Where do we start with this one? The acting of the family is fantastic. Like, each character in the family plays their opposite character. I think the daughter does a fantastic job in her opposite portrayal. Her facial expression, she's very like menacing.
Yeah, but I got to give it up to the lead in this, who's also in the movie Little Monsters, which came out this year, and I didn't even notice it was her. I mean, it looked like her, but the performances and the characters are so different, I didn't even register it was her until I was like, she looks familiar, and I was like, oh, I just watched both these movies this week, and I didn't register. That's how good she was. And the thing is, they're in some of the same shots together, but they do tricks that I didn't even notice, which is really clever. I'm sure if they, I'm not sure how much CGI they use, but I'm sure they use some old camera tricks too. I think Jordan Peele would probably do that kind of thing more so, or at least a little bit. But maybe they're not even on the camera at the same time. It's hard to register. It feels like they are. But there's like a difference in the characters so much. Like at one point, the evil woman, she talks really scary. And she does that, and it's just like, oh God. And she explains kind of the story here. It says, when you had a beautiful child, I had a monster. So you learn that these characters that are on the surface world have these other doppelgangers that must follow suit with them, but their world is hell. So it's definitely a huge statement on classism, I would say. You know, how like, and there's a lot of that kind of this year where you have Satanic Panic, where all the rich people are, you know, devil worshippers and stuff. So, yeah, there's definitely a big classism statement in here where, you know, maybe it's a kind of a call for an uprising or something like that. But I don't want to keep talking more and I'll spoil it. But it turns into almost science fiction too.
Yeah, I mean, it has elements of like body snatchers. It has elements of, in the opening scene that they have tapes by the TV.
Oh,
what do
I
they
can't
have? They
remember
have Goonies.
They have Goonies. And they have a couple. They have Chud.
Chud.
Because the Goonies is an adventure film, and Chud is subterranean horror.
Right.
So cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers really means contaminated, hazardous, urban disposal. So, yeah, so that's kind of like a hint. They give you a little hints, too. And another movie that did that this year was Climax. They show all these people, they show them tapes on the side, and that director, Gaspar Noé, really wears his influences on his sleeves, and you can see it. You're like, oh, I'm seeing, like, Sallow and stuff like Cannibal Holocaust on the side of the thing. You're like, I'm in for a trip. And that's kind of fun. I know that sometimes people will say it's self-indulgent to do that, but if it's a good movie, self-indulgence doesn't matter. Self-indulgence only bothers you when it's a turd.
Right.
I'm serious.
I do think that with us, there's a lot of foreshadowing, or I don't want to say foreshadowing, but like a lot of setup that they do. And it seems a bit too obvious at times.
Well, with the boy, I thought it was obvious. I was like, are they going to do that? That's what they're going to do? Because I don't want to spoil it too much because like they have to somewhat like it seems like they have to mimic to a certain extent, and some of them can't get over the mimic. I was terrified of the father, the villainous father, because it's so great with the duality. Because the real father is like this kind of like big, kind of goofy, really like fun-loving dad, and then the evil father was like this bearded, hulking monster, and you're just like, oh no, like no, I don't want that guy anywhere near me. But I like that the family fights back. I like that they're smart because they may not be more vicious, but they're certainly more intelligent. But there's something in this movie that they kind of telegraphed a twist.
Yeah.
But I don't even know if it's supposed to be a twist. The twist is not very mind-bending, but it brings into question some possible interesting ideas.
Yeah, the twist, I thought it was a solid twist. Like, I kind of anticipated it, but I don't want to say I anticipated it. Like,
when it happened, you weren't surprised.
I wasn't surprised, but I'm like, but it's a well-warranted enough reaction, I think. I'm like, okay, now I know.
Yeah.
Like, it's always on the, like, back of your mind that this is probably going to be a thing. But when they actually presented it, it wasn't like my mind was blown, but I was like, I like this. This is actually deserves merit. Despite what I sort of all the I mean, there is a lot of foreshadowing in it, and the twist isn't so much foreshadowed as much as it's not revealed. The twist is affirmed, and I still liked it.
And the rabbit stuff is really strange.
The rabbit stuff is strange. I do have a funny story with the rabbit. I don't know if it warrants to be said. So like the morning before we watched this, I couldn't sleep. I woke up and I was outside and pitch black out, and I just hear this squealing, and I'm like, what the hell is that? And I just see these tufts of leaves coming at me, and there's some wild screaming animal out here in the front yard barreling at me. I start panicking, like yelling, and it's a rabbit. And I was like, okay, this rabbit scared the shit out of me, and it takes off. So, go my whole day, and then like at the end of the movie, they're eating rabbits, and you know the rabbits are squealing. I'm like, man, for this movie all about like unveiled coincidences and things like that, that's kind of weird that they began and ended with screaming rabbits.
Yeah, so I would give this a recommend. I think it's one of the better horror films I saw this year for sure. And I definitely need to watch Get Out, and I'd definitely be watching Jordan Peele's next movie for sure.
Right.
So I'll probably see that one in theaters this time.
Yeah, I thought this one was fantastic. Definitely watch it. I love the score in this movie. The music is fantastic.
I don't remember the score. I remember liking it, but I can't think of how it went.
It was great. Yeah, I think especially towards the end, whatever. There was almost like choral pieces. I don't know. It got me really into the film. It made me think a lot of Midsummer. A lot of the
score was good in that movie too.
Yeah, the vocal like choral beats, like everything. Just I don't know. It was just like a very like auditory like movie. Like,
don't skip on your score. That's one thing about movies now is they skip on the score. Like the big blockbuster movies, that's a major difference. I'll tell you that now.
Mm-hmm.
The blockbusters back in the past, that's why they held nostalgia and comfort. Maybe it's the time, obviously, but it's because the scores get stuck in your head and you love them. And a lot of the now modern day blockbusters, I'm like, I don't even know any music from it. I can't think of one single like note. You know.
Wonder Woman had a good theme.
Yeah,
that was it.
Somewhat, but I'd recommend this one. Good stuff.
Yeah.
To take the dunk out of the bag.
That's a classic right there.
Messing with that ain't no weed.
What does I got 5 on it mean? It's about drugs.
It's not about drugs. It's a dope song. Don't do drugs.
Get in rhythm.
There you go. There you go.
Creep on in, on in, on in.
Can't believe how big they've got.
Did you hear Gabe got a boat?
He's kidding, right?
He's not kidding.
Hey, I think it's vodka o'clock.
Oh, yeah.
Where's Jason?
Jason?
Jason! Where were you?
I didn't know if you were lost. Stick with me, and I'll keep you safe.
There's a family in our driveway.
It's probably the neighbors. But y'all scared of a family? Hi, can I help you?
Zora, put your shoes on.
If you want to get crazy, we can get crazy. You people.
It's us.
They look exactly like us. They think like us. They know where we are. We need to move and keep moving. They won't stop until they kill us. Or we kill them.
Be careful.
Hammer time!
For all who are willing to pay the price, we invite you to go through the mirror of life.
Hey guys, what's up? It is week 30 of Hammer Time. And this time we have the 4th Dracula in the series. There's 9 of these bad boys, so we're almost halfway there. This one's directed by Freddie Francis. It is Dracula Has Risen from the Grave. I believe it's 1968. Starring Christopher Lee and, what is it, Veronica Carlson? She looked familiar, the lead female in here.
Michael Ripper.
Michael Ripper is in here as well, and he's great. I'd seen this one before, and I can't think. Rupert something plays Monsieur Davies. Yes, Rupert Davies. So what we have here is the town is still superstitious, and this traveling. What is the word? I always say it wrong.
I said Monsieur, but
Monsieur. He's traveling around the countryside, and he stops in this small little place where Dracula was killed a year ago. And everybody's still scared of the castle. They won't go to church because the church is in the shadow of Dracula's castle, so they won't go. He decides to put an end to this, takes a local priest with him to go put a big Catholic-style cross and exorcise the castle. So what happens is the priest chickens out, falls down the mountain, and finds frozen Dracula from the previous movie, who was frozen in the ice after his last skirmish with the good guys. So he busts his head open, his blood leaks in the Dracula's mouth, and Christopher Lee is reawoken, and he's very pissed off, and he wants revenge on the people who put the cross on his castle. So that's pretty much the plot. He moves to the city where this guy is and targets him and his niece's fiance or boyfriend or whatever. And that kind of is the story of this. Dracula takes residence in the sewer, and he pretty much has the Renfield type. The priest is under his control helping him. So that's the setup of this one.
Yeah, setup. Let's see. What to talk about this movie? Michael Ripper does amazing in this. He's a baker and a bar owner.
Where he's perfectly cast. Michael Ripper is essentially the father figure to the lead male in here, the younger guy. The younger guy works for him, he studies, and he, makes the bread and whatever, and Michael Ripper runs this bar, and he's like pretty much just a jovial, kind of drunk, fun-loving, kind of good-natured human being. Rupert Davies is amazing in this movie. He plays Monsieur, and he plays the uncle of the love interest, and he is tremendous in this movie. There's a great scene where he invites the young man over for dinner, and they're sitting there, and he starts to question his religious beliefs, and he says, "You're not Protestant, are you?" Because they're Catholic, and he says, "No, sir," and he says, "Thank God for that." And I started laughing so hard, but he finds out he's an atheist, and it turns to turmoil, and we get the generic kind of Hammer style or Universal style or Gothic style where it's like, I'm a man of science and literature and intelligent things, and I do not believe in religion, and I do not believe in evil, and then he must face evil and believes, and he must believe to stop it.
Yes. There is a second female character in this one. Her name is Xena. She plays the barmaid.
Yeah.
She's a fantastic piece of something.
She's more promiscuous and kind of like some. She just wants to be loved. You get the impression. And when Dracula, Christopher Lee, takes hold, he uses her as a pawn. He uses people as pawns in this, and I don't think I've ever seen him as angry as Dracula. He's very violent. He's very mean. He's upset with everything. This is just kind of Dracula's crusade. He's like on a revenge crusade here.
Yeah.
He's good in this one too. Lots of red bloodshot eyes.
Yeah, lots more they just spray Clorox directly into Christopher Lee's face.
They just grab that shampoo and just rub it. He's like, ah!
There's some fantastic set pieces in here. A lot of the sets, there's a lot of rooftop sets, where the characters are crying, walking on in various scenes. They look fantastic. There's some great shots of Dracula's cape blowing in the wind on the rooftop. I really like this one. I think it was really fun.
To counter the rooftop scenes, there's lots of sewer scenes, which are really good too, because Dracula's lairs in the sewer. So there's all that. And there's this character arc with the priest he possessed, who's constantly fighting the urge to follow Dracula's, basically orders and everything like that. So there's that, and he has, his big kind of character arc in the end of the movie. And he really looks desperate.
Oh, yeah.
You have a lot of good physical body acting from that guy. The acting's great in this. Like I said, can't speak highly enough of Michael Ripper, Rupert Davies, and Christopher Lee. They're all top-notch. Mm-hmm. This one is rated G, but there's quite amount of blood in here.
Yeah, I mean, it opens with blood. I mean, it ends with blood. Yeah, lots of blood in this one.
And Dracula's demise in here is great. And I love how these ones, they continue on. Like, all 9 of the Dracula movies, well, for the most part, except the ones that get in modern times, seems like they could be from the same storyline, like their direct connectivity, while the Frankenstein ones are like, oh, you have no clue what the hell's going on. So, I'm actually liking the Dracula series better overall when we're coming to 4. I think there's... all 4 of the Draculas are watchable, while the watchable to good, while the Frankensteins have 1 dud in there, 1 okay, and 2 good.
Yeah, they're kind of hit or miss. You know, Frankenstein, they, you know, every time it's a Frankenstein, they kind of like reboot it. Aside for the first 2, where they really were back to back. Yeah, like the continuity in the Draculas, it's like
much better.
Yeah, you know,
so
far. But yeah, like, you know, the prior one was died under the ice, and you know, he's frozen this one.
This is directed by Freddie Francis, who did the 3rd Frankenstein, Evil Frankenstein, and I find it funny that they find Frankenstein in ice, we find Dracula in ice, and then if we go back in the Universal times, we found Mummy and I meant not the Mummy, the Wolfman and Frankenstein monster in ice. It's just like, that's just such a very tropey thing. It's like, I found him in ice, so I like it, but I'd give this one a recommend. I'm coming 7.5 out of 10.
I give it a 4 out of 5.
All right, that's pretty good. 8 out of 10. I almost did, but it got a little slow at one point, where like the beginning was so powerful, and then it started getting a little slower.
I mean, there were down times, but I think the character interactions, made up for those down times.
Okay, here we go. We have John Stanley's Creature features. He does out of 5. Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, 1968, 2.5 out of 5. Heavy-handed use of religious symbolism earmarks this third film in Hammer's series to star Christopher Lee as the infamous Count. Well, it is the third to star Christopher Lee, but it's the 4th in the series. In John Elder's actual John Sampson and Anthony Hines script, he is reduced to a one-dimensional vampire suggesting tones of evil, but unsupported by a strong plot. 2 priests climb to Castle Dracula to resurrect the anti-hero and control his bloodletting for purposes of revenge. A giant crucifix figure luxuriously in the blood-gushing climax. Many scenes were shot through a red filter to cast a sanguinary... I don't even know what that word is. Sanguinary?
No, sanguinary?
Yeah, I don't know that word, do you? Motif. But this technique, a poor choice by director Freddie Francis, calls attention to itself whenever the camera pans. The beauticious Veronica Carlson is an eyeful in her flimsy nightgowns. Rupert Davies, and he goes through the cast. Good music by James Bernard, next in this Hammer series, Taste of Blood of Dracula. There's some things wrong with this review. Like, I mean, besides the fact I'm a moron and I don't understand one of the words, but, like, some of this is complete and utter horseshit, and, like, I don't even think he remembers the movie. Never would I ever call Count Dracula in the Hammer series an anti-hero.
Yeah.
That's not defined properly, if you ask me. And in the blood gush, the giant crucifix figures look ludicrously in the blood gushing climax. Red filter, not all of it. There's only a couple scenes in red filter. The other filters are like green and yellow and different tints. I wonder if the print is different per.
That might be the print, or maybe the red filter removes the red. That's why we see the green. I don't know. I don't know how.
No, there is red filters in that. I don't know. I think he's harsh on that. Sometimes I wonder if he remembers the movies he watched.
Did he say that the priests intentionally climbed the mountain to control him? Is that what he said?
Let me see. I was kind of poor. Where were we talking about?
It was in the beginning of it. It was like 2 priests climbed the mountain to control.
2 priests climbed to Count Dracula to resurrect the anti-hero and control his bloodletting for purposes of revenge.
I don't think that's
not what happens at all.
No.
The one priest wants to put the crucifix on his thing. I'm going to stop reading from John Stanley's book because he's getting all the facts around and then giving negative reviews on stuff he doesn't remember.
Right.
2 priests don't do that. They end up doing it on accident, and the one priest hits his head and rolls over. They should say, 2 priests going to Dracula's castle to put an end to the horror accidentally awaken the beast known as Count Dracula.
Right, yeah. Because in the opening, it's the one priest, the not Davies, but the other guy, I don't know his name. He's giving mass to an empty church, and then he goes to the bar.
Well, yeah, I said that, and they said they won't go because Dracula's
Yeah.
castle's shadow invokes the church.
Right.
Not invokes, but encompasses the church.
Right, and then Davies is, well, we have to go up to the mountain, we'll put an end to it, and then you can continue having your mass, and you should have done this a long time ago.
So we have you do yours from Terror on Tape by James O'Neill, and he does out of 4 stars.
Out of 4 stars, he gives us 3, 92
That's
minutes, 68.
very respectable. I agree with him.
Solid entry in the Hammer series of Drac, revived from his icy tomb and fanging buxom Carlson, whose Monsieur Uncle exercised Viscount's castle. Lots of religious symbolism, colorful lighting effects, and a memorable scene of Lee pulling a bloody 5-foot wooden stake from his own heart.
Dead on.
Yeah, that's all you need to know, and it's good. Go watch it.
So I would recommend this one. Next week, I can't remember if it's a Frankenstein. I think it's a Frankenstein. I think it's a Frankenstein Must Be Destroyed.
I will not be here next week. That's a lie. I just want to watch Frankenstein again.
Roll that footage.
Okay.
No coffin could ever hold him. No door could ever bar his way. He is back from the dead.
Count Dracula is alive.
Dracula has risen from the grave. Dracula, the most fearsome name in any language. The most feared being ever to haunt the living.
There is a girl.
Maria?
Bring her to me. During the hours of darkness, she must never be left alone. Bring her to me!
Christopher Lee, Rupert Davis, Veronica Carlson, Hammer's new star discovery, Dracula's most beautiful victim. Dracula has risen from the grave. To resist him is useless. To rise against him is futile. To know him is eternal damnation. Dracula has risen from the grave.
Okay, guys, got the pick a movie here, and I'm loving it because no one got back to me yet about them pick a movies, and I am not going to track you down. So if I get off scot-free without doing any more of these, I'll be happy. Yeah. So I'm just kidding, but we have Andy Schumacher or Schumaki. I don't know how do you say it. Sorry, or Shoemake. I don't know. Let me know. I'm sure I've said your name wrong before. I'm going to draw a second one too, just to get a week ahead, so I don't want to cram. And then we have Joe Paxton. There we go. So, yep. And I guess I'm going to hop into the questions for you guys. What do we got here? We got some questions. Nick Mua. Okay, if you could contribute to a DVD/Blu-ray booklet, which film would you choose? See, the problem is, like, I feel like I would be best fit for an independent horror film. So something like that. Because otherwise, like, maybe I shouldn't be contributing to some of my favorite movies because there's so many more people that are more, they should be doing it more than me. So I guess equipped, I'll say. Let's say probably an indie movie. Maybe something I was actually involved with, I think would be fun. Maybe Headless or something. Let's just do Headless, I guess. Or not even Headless. I want maybe Invalid. Let's do Invalid. You stated you were tired. Would you like to be able to clone yourself or construct a Robot Dave to do the heavy lifting and get more done that way? No. Because Robot Dave will kill you. I know he will. I've seen too many movies to make a clone. And if you clone yourself and only do half the work and then take credit for all the work, it's just like cheating, isn't it? It's cheating. Can a new screenwriter ever craft a good sequel to another writer's script? Jeff Wadlow made a mess of the Kick-Ass franchise. Jane Goodman's screenplay for the original movie was superb. I've never seen a Kick-Ass movie, so can a screenwriter ever craft a good sequel to another's script? I'll tell you, 28 Weeks Later didn't do it, because I'm pretty sure they didn't even see the first movie with as many rules as they broke. I think so, possibly. Can he carry on the story? I'm trying to think of an example where, I mean, I think there's been improvements. Some of the big franchise movies, they probably improved a little bit on some of the sequels. Like if you get a really bad sequel, maybe not from the original, like if you get like one of the real bad ones, I guess some people would say that Wes Craven did really well with his script on New Nightmare compared to Part 6. I haven't seen New Nightmare in years, but I remember Part 6 being infamously hated. So, I guess you could, if you take something on the original script. Would you take that John Carpenter made, it's not a sequel, but a remake, and I think he improved. I do think remakes can be improvements, majority, like The Thing, which is kind of based off just the same source material, not really a remake, but The Blob is an immensely superior movie compared to the original, and I like both of them. So, yeah, I guess it could be done. But you're saying direct sequel. Ooh, Bride of Frankenstein, some people prefer that one. I'm not sure if it's the same writer. I know James Whale did both movies. So, I mean, yeah, I think you could. I should have done some research on this one. But wow, Jake Speed. I completely forgotten about that movie. My brother took me to see that one at movies when I was a kid. It was part of a double feature. Remember those? He's basically asking if I remember double features. That was a little before my time. The only time double features were a thing when I was a kid was when they were actually like at the drive-thru. And I seen a couple there, Richie Rich and Batman Forever and stuff like that, and Fell Asleep. So yeah, I remember double features only to that extent, but not like in the big theater. And in Toledo, Ohio, they just didn't do double features like that. No Grindhouse theaters or anything like that. So I guess we're going to go to the answers, and I asked your favorite movie of the year, horror movie. Celluloid Jam from Twitter. I don't know if Lighthouse counts, but definitely that. If not, then I'll go with Midsummer. Happy Thanksgiving. Then we have from YouTube, Hudson. Favorite film this year, Ready or Not or Satanic Panic? I can't decide. Also, does Brightburn come under horror? Because I enjoyed that as well. I think it does, from my understanding. Nick Wu, 2019 was a decent year for horror. I'm going to cheat a little bit and pick two movies. Midsummer, folk horror at its best, and its grueling breakup flick. 2, the imagery is memorizing, the acting is on point. And Florence Pugh takes the acting crown, though. Check her out. And then he says, second, The Hole in the Ground, a grim fairy tale. Pun intended, about a mother and son who become estranged, and the creepy atmosphere is great, the acting fantastic, especially James Cosmo. I need to see that one still. Zach Nolan, cool man. I know you love character. He's basically, I'm reading this. It's a little different because it's basically an old answer. He says, I know you love character actor. Salem's Lot is the movie for you. Reggie Nalder is creepy as hell. He is also a very strange TV movie from 1975 called The Dead Don't Die, another zombie movie that came out before Dawn of the Dead. I actually have a VHS tape of that. I believe he's on the cover, and he's like coming at you like that. The Mystagogue, favorite horror movie of 2019, Doctor Sleep, way better than I could have ever imagined, and Coco de Coco Da. Awesome. I'm not sure. It must have went over my head. Biggest disappointment, It Chapter 2. Oh. Irish Mad Dog 1987, my favorite horror film of 2019 so far was Bliss, which I watched based on your review and absolutely loved it. Joe Biegos continues to impress me as a director, and I can't wait to see what he does next. I can't wait for VFW. Bobby D, 71, so glad you did Haunt, Tigers, and The Furies, all on my top 10 of the year so far. Viper Rose 1978, favorite movie from the past year so far is a toss-up between Us and Midsummer, both very good movies. I usually wouldn't go with a mainstream pick, but these two flicks were done well with great atmosphere. From Facebook, Muller Laurent, Midsummer, the first movie in a very long time, which managed to make me feel uneasy. This one is true modern Wicker Man and one of the rare modern horror movies which I see as a modern classic of the genre. Matt Hill, Dr. Sleep is the only valid answer. Keith Christian, Bliss. Stanley Eisman, Dr. Sleep for horror. Amy Fox Goodwin, it's a toss-up between Parasite and The Nightingale at this point. Happy Thanksgiving. Lee Jones, Little Joe by Jessica Hauser. Brittany Belcher, The Lighthouse, currently, but also enjoyed Midsummer. Cody Rapp, The Lighthouse, the only movie I've ever seen where a man demands Poseidon kill another man for not liking his cooking, and that scene is equally the funniest, most terrifying thing ever put to film. David Luton, I haven't seen a lot of 2019 films, but Dr. Sleep for me. Marco Vitian, Midsummer or Hagazusa, can't yet decide which I like more. Rahesh Brown, Bliss by Joe Biegos. David Gibson, he also says awesome film in my top 10. And then David Gibson says Parasite is my favorite film, but it is a genre bending, so I don't know where to place it. Second is The Lighthouse. Ivor Reed, Midsummer. Zach Puccinelli, Joker, JP, I'll tell you later. And Jordan Bibby, It Chapter 2. So now I kind of going along with that, I wanted to know what movie you're looking forward to the most next year. For me, it's VFW, it's Parasite, because that didn't really get a wide release. So those two, The Golden Glove is another one I'm really looking forward to. So those are the ones that I'm looking forward to. Let me know some of yours. And I guess we're going to hop into the update. Okay, this is going to be a quick update. First we have from Scream, I think this is going out of print, Disturbing Behavior. Never saw this one. Nick Stahl, that's pretty cool. He's a good actor. And then we have Katie Holmes from Toledo, right? Never seen this one. You know, I don't know how it is. This and Cherry Hill are two movies I've never seen. So, always heard about them. Never seen them. William Sadler's in this, so that's a plus. Then we have The Prophecy. Yeah. This movie is by John Frankenheimer. I've wanted to see this movie forever. I had the DVD. I just never watched it. I'm looking forward to checking this out big time. And then last, we have Dracula with Frank Langella, Laurence Olivier. I remember Donna Pleasant's in this one too. This has the actual color version on there, which I've wanted to see forever. And this movie's really good, to be honest. Very, very good movie. Very good Dracula, too. Yeah, so I guess we're going to hop back to the video. All right, guys, thank you very much for watching. And as always, you guys have a good one.